Get ready as Excite Wrestling presents Fight Club, December 30th at the American Legion Post 80 on 76 Main Street, Binghamton, New York. This event features unprofessional Jimmy Jacobs versus Joe Gacy. Also, Joey Ryan versus Dick Justice. And for the Excite Championship, Binghamton's own Sean Carr taking on Austin Aries. Bell time is at 7 p.m. Tickets are available at excitewrestling.com/shop. That's excitewrestling.com/shop. And if you can't make it to the show, be sure to catch this event live on twitch.tv/excitewrestling. That's twitch.tv/excitewrestling. Get your tickets now before we sell out.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gamefly. And for listeners of the show, Gamefly is offering an exclusive 30-day free trial that's one game out. And all you have to do to take advantage of this awesome offer is go to gameflyoffer.com/gimmick. Again, that's gameflyoffer.com/gimmick. Let's get to the show.
This podcast is scheduled for one fall.
Whoa, who let you out of the basement? Let me do this. This podcast is scheduled for one fall, and I'm still not reading any of this other crap you wrote, so just click your buttons and start the show.
Welcome all, it's time for another installment of the Gimmick Table. Glad to have you here with us today. I am Matt. We have a great show for you today because Jesse, promoter for Southern Underground Pro, is going to be sitting down with us today to share his stories. But of course, your Gimmick Table listening experience would not be complete without my lovely, lovely co-host. He is the Marv Merchants to my Harry Lime. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Bats.
And all I gotta say to you is you can keep the change, you filthy animal.
That'll make a lot more sense to everybody by the end of this episode. All right, before we dive into the show, let's take this opportunity to thank everybody for listening. We appreciate the support. And make sure you subscribe on iTunes. Give us a rate and review. This is very helpful for us as well as for our guests. It helps get them in front of a larger audience. And also, we have some shows to tell you about. On December 17th, Iconic Heroes of Wrestling Excellence is going to be presenting Jeremy's Birthday Bash. If you don't know, Jeremy's the Making Towns guy, and he's been a huge, huge supporter of this show. So spend his birthday with him and enjoy some great wrestling. And you can join the celebration at El Grand Saloon Event Center on 8105 Camp Bowie West, Benbrook, Texas. Doors open at 5 p.m. Bell time is at 6 p.m. You get the front row tickets for $25. You get the ringside tickets for $20, and you get the general admission for $15. And you can purchase your tickets at squareup.com/store/IHW. And also keep in mind they do have a Black Friday/Cyber Monday deal going, which is going to be valid through December 1st of this year. If you buy your tickets online, you're going to save $5. And you can also save money until 6 p.m. Central Time today on their Pro Wrestling Tees store by going to prowrestlingtees.com/VDF, and you can save 20% using the promo code Black Friday. Bats, we also got some big news coming from the Making Towns Classic. They've announced their 4th participant in Sue Young. And on top of that, they've announced the Cyber Monday front package deal for $45. That's going to get you admission to both shows, which are going to be taking place on May 12th, 2018. One's going to be at 3 p.m. The other's going to be at 7:30 p.m., both at the Nashville Fairgrounds. Yes, this deal is available till January 2nd of 2018. You don't want to delay because they are limited and they are going to sell out fast. So if you want to take advantage of this awesome package, purchase your tickets through PayPal at mikehales57@gmail.com. And make sure you also follow them on Facebook by searching Making Towns Classic and on Twitter at the MT Classic. You got to keep in mind there's still 12 more participants for this tournament for them to announce all before May 12th. So make sure you stay up to date with that. Now, speaking of Nashville, today we have the opportunity to sit down and discuss the Nashville wrestling scene. So please join us in welcoming to the Gimmick Table. He is Jesse from Southern Underground Pro. How goes it today?
Man, I can't complain. I'm laying here on my couch in my warm apartment with my cat, and I'm just super thankful for the opportunity to be at the Gimmick Table today.
Yeah, we're so glad that we could have you here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. We're probably a lot colder than you are, seeing as that we have to turn off all heat in the house or the microphones pick it up.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it gets pretty loud.
My girlfriend and I refuse to turn on the heat, so we just have one space heater. But I typically like the cold, and the space heater doesn't get super warm, so I'm like the perfect amount of warm right now, which is still probably a lot warmer than you guys, unfortunately, and I apologize for that.
Oh no, it's okay. I mean, we're built for it here in New York State. I mean, talk to us in January.
Yeah, when we got a foot of snow on the ground.
But it's not even the snow. It's
man.
it's the wind. Like today was pretty bad because we have the wind. When you don't have the wind, it's not bad.
I mean, I know that from Chicago, but I can only imagine like going further north to New York. It's just essentially an ice age. I think one time when I left Chicago, the actual temperature was negative 16 degrees, and like I love the cold, but I was just like, nah, man, this is too much. This is too much.
Don't call it the Windy City for nothing.
Right, that is very true. Windy City, Chirac, both very, very accurate names.
I haven't heard that one before.
Really, man?
I'm totally gonna use it in like everyday conversation now, but
I think it's the south side of Chicago is supposed to be really, really, really bad. Every time that I've been there, it's been, I mean, it's sketchy, but like I kind of feel at home in sketchy places, so it didn't really bother me much.
we live in a little sketchy part of the town around here, so that's fun.
How far are you guys like in relation to Brooklyn?
About 3 hours away from the city.
A little northwest.
We're about an hour south of Syracuse.
Okay, because I think it was last year. Yeah, I think it was last year. For my podcast, we traveled up to Brooklyn for Tier 1. So I was curious as to how far you guys were from Brooklyn. That was my first and only time up to New York State, so it was fun though. Got to go to Times Square and do all that touristy stuff.
Yeah, that unfortunately is.
That's not New York State.
Yeah, that's
New York City. Sorry if we're defensive about that.
We're not defensive.
No, you're fine. Like,
No.
I'm totally ignorant to it. So,
Well, we got like trees and mountains and stuff around here.
Yeah.
so you guys are like upstate.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're
Gotcha.
we're like the southern part of New York, if that makes any sense.
Pretty close to the PA border.
Right.
Gotcha.
If you were going to come into the actual state of New York and not go to the city, like say you were going to like the Buffalo, Syracuse area, you would most likely come through
Like Philly and then like left
and come up
west.
through Binghamton. That's why Binghamton used to be booming, because it was basically the way you came into New York State. This is where IBM started. So there were big aspirations and we fell short. Thanks,
Still got
guys.
Lockheed Martin holding it down out here. Building helicopters for the government.
I'm just gonna let you guys know that my knowledge of New York is very limited. I know New York hardcore, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, and that the WWF used to be based out of New York. That's about the extent of my knowledge of New York as a whole.
That is probably three of the finer things about New York. So you're lucky that you know that.
I mean, that and like my best friend, this is super random, but he had family that lived in upstate New York, and every time they'd visit, they'd bring down Glacier hot dogs. I don't know what the hell those are, but I remember them being super delicious.
I'm gonna Google that.
He's Googling Glacier hot dogs because as New York natives, we've never heard of those. But what we have here, they're called Speedies.
Traditional like lamb or pork cubed, but a lot of it is chicken now. They're cubed, marinated in like a briny olive oil solution. Then you grill them up.
That sounds fantastic.
They're delicious, and everywhere you go, if like they happen to have Speedies, it's crazy. Like they know them from New York.
I need a bunch of hot dogs.
All right, Glacier hot dogs. Oh,
Is it
Glazier
a
with
thing?
a Z.
Like,
Is it Glazier with a Z?
maybe.
Hannaford, New York. That's pretty.
This has been like 12-ish years. No, longer than that. Maybe close to 15 years ago.
Are they like bright red?
Yes.
Yeah, that's these guys.
Man,
Hannaford,
those
New
things
York.
are so damn good.
Yeah, Hannaford, I think, is going to be closer to like the Syracuse area, if I'm correct. Which I'm
Looking
probably
that
not.
up now too. Poughkeepsie. It's
More towards Rochester, then.
I love how I've hijacked this podcast and started talking about hot dogs.
Funny thing is, I was talking to our sound guy today about how if I was going to start looking for a sponsor, maybe I'd look for like, some like vegan clothing lines or something. I don't think they're going to want to sponsor this episode, man. Throw that
I mean,
idea
vegan
out
hot
the window.
dogs are incredible.
They are disgusting. They are.
As a former vegan and vegetarian, like we have an awesome spot down here called the Wild Cow, and they have like awesome buffalo tempeh grinders and stuff like that. So I get down with vegan and vegetarian food as much as possible too.
We don't have very good choices for vegan hot dogs here. Everything I've tried has not sat well with me, but I don't like to eat a lot of the processed stuff. I found chicken nuggets that are delicious and meatballs, but outside of that, everything else I try to do from scratch.
was it that Morningstar
Yeah.
Farms? Is that the frozen vegan food?
I can't. They're not vegan. They got milk in them. I can't eat anything with Morningstar in them because those are just vegetarian.
Isn't there a brand called like corn, but it's spelled with like a Q or something.
Corn?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what they sell like.
Okay.
Quinoa corn?
I don't
that
think
what it is?
I don't think I can eat those ones either. Hold on one second.
Damn.
Wait, no, there's none in my freezer. I was gonna go check. I could start screaming upstairs to my girlfriend, but
We need more corn!
nah, a lot of beans, lots of nuts, lots of grains. We got a Core Life here, so
Core Life's good.
It's good. It's basically like soups and salads, and they have all vegan options. But outside of that, we don't have which I'm surprised because we are actually a big college town because Binghamton University brings in a lot of people from New York City.
Right, you'd think all those people from Long Island would be more.
Right. I would think people from Long Island would be vegans. It just, as much as it pains me to say that as a vegan, I would have to say that probably people from Long Island tend to be vegans, or might be.
I'm very sad that you don't have very good vegan vegetarian options there because like I almost feel spoiled. We had the Wild Cow, and then we had a place called Khan's. It was Khan's Breakfast and Desserts, and they were like not even a half a mile apart. Like you could just walk from one to the other, and it was great. So if you're ever in Nashville, I'll make sure to take you to the Wild Cow so you can enjoy that.
All right. The plan is to come down for the Making Towns Classic. That's what we're trying to.
Oh, perfect.
Figure out. We're trying to get that all taken care of. That's after tax season, so that's good too. But
yeah,
my car's falling apart.
Perfect timing.
So that's half a battle. Maybe my co-host. I'm looking at him right now.
You want me to drive down to Tennessee?
We'll talk. We'll make a deal. Well, you won't have to pay for
on my lease.
On your leased car. But you won't have to pay for anything. I think you're gonna.
Except for all those overage miles.
Well, we'll figure out. Well, you just can't drive a lot that like month before it. Start planning now. Like cut down on your mileage.
We could rent a car.
Yeah, you can rent a car.
That would actually not be a bad idea.
You rent a car. We'll make Cade drive. We'll make the sound guy drive.
We could write it off too as a business expense.
It sounds like you guys just decided to green boy the sound guy and make him drive the whole way there and the whole way back.
Well, it depends if he's gone off to be brainwashed by Disney yet or not.
How am I going to have them road sodas if I'm driving?
He's leaving us to go do an internship for Disney. That's the plan.
Jesus.
But he's still going to do the sound, via the internet.
Internet communication.
Internet communication.
What an age we live in.
Yeah. Hopefully I just don't screw up the pre-recording volumes like I did on our one episode. I'm still learning the mixer. Sometimes I screw things up. And
I mean, that's pretty much the story of my life, man.
We have a lot of content of me just screaming because I can't get things to work or I can't find a chord.
Screaming random obscenities because you can't find the things you need or get it to sound right. Man, that's my life.
And then this kid comes over, touches two buttons, and it sounds like gold.
Now, just a thought. Do you yell at anybody else in the room and take it out on them by chance if that's happening? Like if you're getting frustrated? Does that...
I mean, if I'm being honest, I tend to get really snappy. So, like, we went to Scenic City Invitational, and we had this bright idea. Well, I'm actually going to take full blame for it. I had this bright idea to do a Q&A with the carnies in our hotel room because we didn't really think, like, anybody would show up. And then, like, the next thing we know, there's, like, 50 people crammed in our hotel room. And then Carrie Awful's just like, well, let's go upstairs to the conference room. So we go upstairs, and that night, the I think it was the USB cable we had for the microphone just shit the bed entirely. And if you could plug it in, and if you left it alone, it was fine. But if you even looked at it wrong, it would short. So I was paranoid about that because we had that, and then we had another interview that we had to do the next day. So luckily we got upstairs, and I was such a dick. I was rude to all the wrong people for 5 minutes, and just went back and apologized after. I was just like, hey, I'm really sorry. I was just very, very nervous. I'm riddled with anxiety and just want to get this done. And then we walk upstairs, and rather than the 50 people we had, there's 80 people now. And it's just the first time we had ever done a live recording in front of that many people. So it's just well, I was an ass and I apologize, but not so much yelling, just me being very anxious.
Right, and it's the same exact thing I do. It's because I want to be professional. If I give somebody a time, I want to call you at that time. I don't want to have to message you and be like, oh, I'm an idiot and don't know what I'm doing right now. 21 episodes in, and it's going to be 30 more minutes. So it's that pressure to remain professional, maintain that reputation that, they said the interview is going to start at 10 by 10:05. they contacted me by 10:05. So I know, Bats, I'll do it on the air right now if it'll make you happy, and I'll apologize for when we did the rewind episode with Benjamin Banks that I kind of snapped at you and was freaking out that it took us 45 minutes to understand why we couldn't hear the other person on the
Oh, that was
phone.
ridiculous.
All right? Just be thankful you're not my girlfriend.
Why, do you hit her?
No, I don't hit my girlfriend. She hits me. All right?
I could actually see it. You have a punchable attitude and face sometime.
I call it charm that you just don't understand.
It's a higher level of charm that nobody understands.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
This is 10 years of friendship right here between me and him, and it's funny because him and I really have no filter with one another, and that sometimes comes out with our other friends, and they don't get it.
Understand,
right?
that.
They get upset with us, and me and Bats are like, well, what's the point? Like, me and Bats will just talk shit to each other all day long, just because, that's what we do.
When you reach that like decade mark of friendship, or you're around somebody so long, you can literally just do anything, and it doesn't even matter. Like, my best friend and I, we actually, I'll peel back the curtain here. So we just ran, or we're currently running an angle at Southern Underground Pro that involves Kevin Koo, myself, Kurt Stallion, and then on the heel side, it's Angelus Lane, Dominic Guarini, and my best friend Brett Eisen. So we've been doing like this slow build where like Brett's never been pinned. So he's technically never had a loss. He feels like he should be the number one contender, or at least further in line for a title shot. In August, he like snapped at the show that we had and like took my chair, like made it very obvious that we were like best friends and have had like almost a lifelong friendship. Took my chair from the commentary table and like smashed Kevin Koo in the head with it, tombstoned him on it. So then at this show, this past show in October, I made him face some consequences, and he had to wrestle the Hitman for Hire, Mr. Grimm. And we were talking about like the things we had planned later on, and like basically the closing of the show was just full on chaos. I came up with this really dumb plan for him to basically throw me off of a stage through a table and then stab me in the head with forks because I'm just an idiot.
Yeah, that sounds so much fun.
Dude, like, I don't wrestle as much anymore, so whenever I do something like this, I feel like I have to make it count. It's got to be really fucking stupid. So I had him toss me off the stage, and my original plan was I think there was like 3 or 4 forks, and I wanted him to essentially like do the forks how people do skewers, but this is like the first time he was ever just like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not going to do that to you, which I thought was really funny because we've done worse things to each other, and he was just like, yeah, I can't do that. So I know all about that, just like being able to say like dumb stuff and do dumb stuff with your friend, because I run a lot of really dumb ideas by him, that being one of them. And friends are awesome, especially when they like go with your dumb ideas, but when they're too dumb, they're just like, you need to pump the brakes.
Well, that being said, Matt, if you asked me to jam a bunch of forks into your head, I would gladly oblige.
Oh, he definitely jammed forks into my head. He actually scarred me up pretty nice. So,
well, I just want you to know I wouldn't do that to you, Bats, okay? Because your girlfriend would come over here and yell at me.
For what, like stabbing forks into your head? Why would she care?
If I stabbed you in the head.
I wouldn't let you stab me. I would stab you. I would just love to stab you. Anyways.
Can you feel the love in the room?
I think we're uncovering some deep-seated issues here.
We're going to back up off that dark territory and take the lighted path.
Let's hit that lighted path.
We've spoken kind of briefly about our common love for music, the punk, the hardcore scene.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that there's a strong sense of community in Tennessee, kind of, I can say here in New York, that we had a strong sense of community for a very long time within those scenes? Did you have that down there in Tennessee as well?
So when I first started going to hardcore shows, it was very kind of closed off to new people. Like, you kind of had to earn your keep. So when I started going to shows, everybody was kind of like, nobody really talked to us. Actually, Kerry Awful was one of the first people that like really kind of took me under his wing and like hung out with me and like really paid attention to me and like didn't treat me like I was just some scrub. So like when I first started going to shows, I went with a bunch of kids that lived in the same town as me, and a lot of people just didn't like us because we were from that town specifically, and I still don't understand that, but you know, it is what it is. But the older we got, the more some of us kept going around. When some people kind of fell out, people became cool with us to the point where like hardcore is weird, where like if you go for a long time, you're like, I don't know if it was like this in New York, but like in Nashville, if you went for a certain number of years, like people started to look up to you as an elder. And some of us got to that point where we worked at the venues and we booked shows or played in shows. So like everybody knew us just from like seeing us around. But once we got rid of crews and stuff, there was like a stronger sense of community, and a lot of the older guys kind of stopped going. And then the older guys that did stick around, they became more accepting of like the younger kids that started going to shows. And we would actually try to make it a point, if we booked shows, to book those younger kids' bands on shows, even if they weren't like the best. But you know, like it's one of those things where everybody starts somewhere. So like even if you play in like a crappy like metal band, throw that crappy metal band full of like 15-year-olds onto a show with like touring hardcore bands or like touring metal bands, it's more than likely going to be a gateway for them to start finding themselves and coming into what they actually do like and what they identify with. So I guess to answer your question, at first, no, there wasn't really a sense of community for me going in, but we kind of just like weaseled our way in to making everybody like us by being there so much. We just kind of really did that whole earn your keep thing, and once they saw us enough and saw that we actually cared enough to like book shows and kind of contribute, then everybody kind of seemed to like us a little bit more, which was cool.
Yeah, in regards to your elders, here they were referred to as scene gods. That's what, you know, you would refer to somebody who was like, you know, they were the cool kid in the scene, or if like, you know, we ran shows, so we got, you know, we were privileged to have that name as well, because, but it was
you were a scene god, Matt?
I was a scene god.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Well, no, it's because we ran shows for a good 3 or 4 years down on the Ave, and we had a China buffet where we threw shows. We did a couple Legion halls. I'm pretty sure we're the reason that you still can't have shows at the Legion.
You may have just touched on like something that is like one thing that I've always wanted, and that's like hardcore and punk shows at a Chinese buffet.
Yeah, I saw Mastodon. I think I told you about that. I saw Mastodon at a Chinese buffet. It was no longer a Chinese buffet, and what it was is there was a guy, his son was really big into the music scene, and he owned a ton of property, and wherever his son could find a venue, like we actually had, it was called the Underground Theater because it was underneath, and we would have shows in this underground theater, and it was really nice. But that went away after a while because one of the stores that were upstairs purchased the building, and we had to use the China buffet, so we would rent that from them. And I didn't have the opportunity to throw the Mastodon show, but they eventually played there as well, and it was cool. You saw a lot of big bands play there. I saw them also play at a venue that was, I think, a 12 by 12 room. So Binghamton, New York, as for strange and actually being the Twilight Zone, is really good at, when it comes to underground kind of promotions, doing things very well. I can give them credit for that.
Nashville we got lucky because we always had like a handful of venues for the longest time. Like even before I was going to shows, like we had a place called Blue Sky Court where like Converge used to play, and like a lot of the elders, whenever they would talk about shows, like a specific Converge show would come up where somebody was running around in a football helmet and I think somebody got knocked out. And then we had this one place that was called Rocket Town, which is still around, and it's like an all ages club, no alcohol. It's very faith-based Christian community. And for the longest time you could almost see just about any band there, from like Whitechapel to, I think I saw Have Heart, Down to Nothing there, Ion Dissonance, all kinds of crazy bands. And then we had the place where everybody went to fight, which was called the Muse, which is now a Domino's, and it was literally the most disgusting place. It was so gross that if you had to go to the bathroom 9 times out of 10, you went next door to the world's largest porn store to go to the bathroom, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, I think the venue that was 12 by 12, it was called 123 Fake Street.
Like The Simpsons?
Yep. It was named after The Simpsons. I haven't been to a show. I stopped going to shows.
I kind of did the same thing. I just there's a lot of negativity, and I just got really jaded. So I did the same thing and removed myself from all of it as well. Still listening to the music, just didn't make it out to the shows.
Yeah.
But I went to a house show a couple of months ago and saw my friends from Chicago, a band called Thieves, and it's just like really dark, aggressive hardcore. And I had a lot of fun seeing those guys play again. And then I just saw where I think it's Terror, Jesus Peace, Knocked Loose, and Stone are coming in February. And Terror is one of my favorite hardcore bands of all time, so I'll probably go see that. It's at this tiny place called The End, so it's going to be pretty crazy.
That's awesome. I got the chance to see Converge in Boston, which was great too, in their hometown. So that was probably
I can only imagine
the biggest pit I've ever seen in my life. It was inside a gymnasium, and when they started, it just opened up, and it was almost the whole size of that room.
Jesus. I saw Modern Life is War at an indoor soccer field in Chicago. They did 2 shows in a day. The first show was played the first show. I know Kill Your Idols was on it. Man, I can't remember who else played the first show. It was I think 4 or 5 bands played Modern Life is War, Kill Your Idols, and a couple other bands. And it was like a Hispanic indoor soccer field. So you walk up this spiral ramp, and then you get to the room, and half of the room is just Spanish-speaking soccer players, totally unaware of what's about to happen. And then the other half of the room is punks and hardcore kids. And everybody's just really interested in what's going on. And the hardcore kids are interested in what's going on the opposite side of the room. The soccer players are interested in the hardcore kids. So everybody got along, and it was really cool. And it's one of the weirdest places I've ever seen a show. And then later that night, Kill Your Idols, Modern Life is War, and Harm's Way played in a tiny bar called, I think, the Cobra Lounge in Chicago, and it was really cool. Modern Life is War is one of those bands that no matter how long it's been since I've gone to a show, I'll always, if they're playing relatively close, I'll always make time to go see.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Pig Destroyer. That is just one of the, I'm not, when it gets into the metal aspect, I'm more on the punk, and then it goes, I like a little hardcore, and then metal is hit or miss for me. I'm a huge Superjoint Ritual fan, but I can't listen to Pantera. I don't know what it is. I love Superjoint down, but I can't listen to Pantera.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I can listen to a couple Pantera songs, but I can't listen to a full Pantera album. Right. Whereas with Metallica, I can listen to Metallica for hours on end, and I tend to get shit for that for some reason. But just personal taste. I prefer Metallica over Pantera. That's
my point. Pig Destroyer. They don't play a lot of live shows, so if I did ever get the opportunity to go out and see them, I would definitely drive a good amount of time to go see them.
I had a pact with a buddy. We both loved the Descendants and hadn't seen the Descendants. And we said that if they played within 8 hours, we would go see them. This actually leads into a pretty funny story. So I think it was the second time, technically third time, because of those 2 shows in Chicago. I saw Modern Life is War. Modern Life is War and Descendants played the same festival in Atlanta called Wrecking Ball Fest. They were supposed to be tearing down this venue called the Masquerade, which was a great venue in Atlanta. So Modern Life is War played. It was essentially a 3-room venue, and the rooms were called Heaven, Purgatory, and Hell. Heaven being the big room, Purgatory being a smaller middle room, Hell being the bottom floor. Modern Life is War played Hell, and during the very first song, I don't even remember what the song was, but I climbed up on a speaker, dove off, landed on everybody. It was a perfect stage dive. I just happened to turn over, and as I'm turning over, I see somebody jumping super fucking high in the air, lands right on me, pushes me through everybody's hands, and my head bounced off the floor like a basketball. Oh. And pretty much no sooner I hit the floor, I knew I had a concussion, a really bad concussion. So then I get up, and I kind of regain a little bit of composure and go right back up for another dive. Then later on, I start realizing how bad the concussion is, and I'm well, I've still got to sit through a Descendants set because I'm not missing the Descendants. So the only time I've seen Descendants, I was extremely concussed and kind of just wanted it to be over.
Oh, that sucks though. But I got to see them.
Yeah, I mean, it was they played a great set. They actually did one of the most punk things I've ever seen, and they played too long. And the the venue cut their power, but they didn't fully cut power because they kept playing. Nice. So it was just rather than being amplified, it was just you could still hear everything. It just wasn't as loud. And they probably played for another 10-15 minutes like that, which was incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's not very punk rock. Those are quick 15-20 minute sets. I remember going to shows, you get 20 bands within 3 hours if setup time was okay. More like 4, I'm exaggerating.
Well, I mean, a lot of times when I was booking shows, a lot of I used to book bands. If my buddy Josh listens to this, I'll probably pop him. But a my buddy Josh Allen out of Alabama, he used to play in a band called Dead Heroes, and they always toured with they were like a real dark hardcore. They would always tour with this band called I think it was Downside. So like a lot of those bands would tour together, and they would just share members and equipment just to make things easier and faster. So those guys would play for like 10, 15 minutes, and then the other band would play 10, 15 minutes, and like you book like a 6, 7, 8 band show, but it ends up being like probably shorter than a 4 or 5 band show, just because these songs are short and there's like no set change, which is incredible. Where you have a set change every like 2 or 3 bands rather than like every other band.
I remember we used to have a lot of festivals. I'll stop with the Bats is rolling his eyes as we do this, because we could mention these bands and he would have no idea what we're talking about. He's just like, But one of my favorite moments ever is we went up to, I believe it was Rochester, to see Black Dahlia Murder, and I'm not sure who else it was. And I was outside with the Black Dahlia Murder, and I forget who it was in the band. I believe it was Brian. But we were basically trying to find a hooker together in Rochester. It was one of my favorite moments. We're just screaming at women across the street, "Are you a hooker?" You know, the things you do with your... It's the one thing I remember about me and my friends is that we would just do anything, and there was blatant disregard for really anything when it came to authority or anything. I'm so glad on so many levels that no longer exists in my life to the magnitude that it once did.
It's pretty funny. Like, you sit back and you think about how much you've grown up since you know, were like probably in the heyday of what, like your punk and hardcore years, like where you literally just didn't care about anything and you would do anything. Like, I was actually talking to one of my chefs at work, and we were just like, he's like kind of like an old hardcore kid, but like a little more surface level and more like into metal too. But we still have like common bands that we like both like. So we're like trading show stories, because he used to do security and I did security for a while, but I was also a bit more of a shithead. So like we're trading like fight stories, and we're just like, man, it's incredible that we like never went to jail or anything. And just like all the dumb stuff we did, like in between bands, and like just killing time at shows before doors or like after the show. Just incredible that we never ended up in jail just because of like pure stupidity.
Yeah, I am very lucky that I never ended up in jail, and same with my friends. I mean, I had a couple who unfortunately did end up in that road because they never did grow up, but hey, I was smart. It was one of those decisions. I saw where they were going, and it's, you know, learn from the mistakes of others so you don't have to make them yourself.
Exactly. So if you had to rattle off like, I don't know, like 5 to 10 punk hardcore bands, who would you say like your all-time greats would be?
My all-time greats, so we talked about this before, Bane's in there.
Yep.
And I'm a huge Converge fan as well. My favorite hardcore band of all time. Like, I think the reason I fell in love with them is I used to key in on their drummer when I would watch him play, and you could just watch his smile when they played, and it was just, you could just tell that he was having the greatest fucking time out of anybody in that room. So, and that just, I don't know what it was. It just, that's what gave, shut up. Don't give me that look. All right. It's this memory I have from every single time I've seen them, whether it was in Syracuse or somewhere else. The only thing I always hated about Converge Live was the difference in the vocals.
Yeah.
That's my one pet peeve. I'm a huge Against Me fan.
Ooh, we're going to talk about that.
You're not an Against Me fan, or?
No, I love Against Me, but I have a very weird favorite Against Me record.
Which one is it?
The Disco Before the Breakdown.
It's actually one of my favorites, the 3-song. It's one of my favorite albums.
Yeah.
One of my favorite albums.
I found them through Matt Cross and Josh Prohibition. They had a backyard wrestling DVD called Passion for Pain, and I think the very last song on that DVD was the title track, Disco Before the Breakdown. And I fell in love with that song, and I'd probably listen to it like 10, 15 times on repeat. And then this was back in like, I don't even remember when that came out, but I was like in the heyday of backyard wrestling, and like it was live punk rock and hardcore were live. So it was like all of my aggression as like a teen finally had like some weird outlet between music and backyard wrestling. So hearing that song and then like listening to that record, like it was so different from everything that I was listening to at the time that it was like the perfect escape from like super aggressive hardcore and punk and just like weird like borderline ska punk. I actually listened to that record not too long ago, and even though it's 3 songs, to me it still holds up as like damn near a perfect record.
Yeah, I listen to it. It's still at least once a month I listen to that. Probably the band I listen to probably way more than I should for as old as some of those songs are, but I don't care. I still connect to it. It's nostalgic. Other bands, huge Propagandhi fan.
Okay.
I love Propagandhi. You ever heard of iFarm?
I have not.
All right, I'll have to find you a link to their music. They're a really good punk band. Another band, De La Hoya. They're from New York City. They're more punk. Fugazi, like I mentioned earlier. There's so many. No Effects.
Okay. I like how it's like a mixture of like well-known and lesser-known, because that's usually about the route I take. It's like everything in between. And it's not just like, I'm not one of those people that's like has to be super obscure to like prove my punk points.
Right,
it's
yeah.
like, no, man, I love the stuff that like I like that got me to find like the more obscure stuff. So like if I don't mention that, I feel like I'm just like I'm cheating myself and I'm not being true to like everything that I actually do love about punk and hardcore.
Yeah, it's the music, I think, more than anything, it speaks to people. That's why I always connected to it. Some, especially with punk. Now, metal is a far more technical and more sound and actual than some punk is. Punk a lot of times can be sloppy and can be 3 notes, but punk's not always about the actual music being played as much as what they're trying to say. And that's what
right.
I also connected to as well.
That and just like the pure, like just raw emotion of a punk show. Like, quick story. If I had to like rattle off like my favorite punk and hardcore bands, I would have to tie 2 bands like literally in the same spot. And that's because I saw them at the same time and kind of found out about them at the same time. And that'd be Life Trap and Government Warning. I think Life Trap was from Memphis and Government Warning may have been, I think from Richmond, Virginia. So I saw them at an old dilapidated house called the Fun House in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was freezing cold, no heat in the house, and it was just like me, this kid I used to hang out with, Dave, and we were the only 2 people that like we only knew each other there. The rest were just like punks, like nobody that we had ever seen at shows, and we show up there and it's freezing cold and we don't know really what's going on. We're kind of just waiting for the cops to show up at any moment, and I don't even remember the other bands that played. I just remember Government Warning and Life Trap having the craziest set. And I just remember seeing 2 punks with a lot of studs, just like arm in arm around each other, just running back and forth as hard and fast as they can, and literally almost ran through a door, like the front door to the house actually. And it was just like one of the best experiences I've ever had at a show. So if I were to list off some of my favorite punk and hardcore bands, I would put Government Warning and Life Trap tied for whatever spot I rattled them off at.
I've never heard much out of like the Nashville area punk wise, but Ohio, in that area, the Midwest, I'm a really big fan of like folk punk. There's Operation Cliff Clavin. They're one of my favorite bands. Defiance, Ohio. It's really got like that folk style mixed in with the punk, and I've always really appreciated that. I'll send you some links for them because they're really freaking good. I think you'd appreciate them. I would
really enjoy that because I'm always looking for new stuff to listen to, especially like I leave for WrestleCade at 3 a.m. Friday morning, so I'm going to be looking to listen to anything for an 8-hour drive. So anything you want to send me, I'm more than willing to check out.
All right. I know some of them got stuff on Bandcamp, so I'll find the links for that and get that.
Perfect. I think I still have the Bandcamp app too, so that's perfect.
Everything's coming together. All right, so let's get to the wrestling because that's what my co-host is here for. He's like I said earlier, he listens to that Dave Matthews stuff.
That's not true. I've been listening to a lot of Garth Brooks lately.
Man, so we'll get to wrestling in a second. Garth Brooks is like the best ever. My girlfriend actually just got me, she got us Garth Brooks tickets. My ticket is my Christmas present, and I could not be more excited for, I think it's December 10th or 11th. We're going to go see Garth here in Nashville, and holy shit, am I so excited.
That's going to be huge.
Man, I rarely drink anymore. Like, I'll have like a beer or a glass of wine every now and then, but I plan on just like living out my full southern white trash potential and just like getting destroyed to Garth Brooks and screaming till I don't have a voice. I took the whole weekend off just to like pretty much just destroy my whole body to Garth Brooks.
Ain't going down till the sun comes up.
Man, I can't wait, dude. I'm so excited.
Oh, man. I've obviously heard of Garth Brooks songs. I'm not a big fan of country. I'm a hipster, so I like Johnny Cash because you have to. I'm also, though, a big fan of Hank 3. And I don't know if you ever heard of R.L. Burnside.
No, I haven't.
I don't know if I said he's kind of country, I know you've been on the podcast with Myron from Tapped Out. And
Yeah.
Really good support of the show. Thank you, Myron. One day I saw he posted that he was listening to it, and I had to pull up my vinyl and show it to him. But I'll check that too. He's funny. I like stuff like that too. I listen to everything. I listen to some like Howlin' Wolf, old school jazz and stuff. I like to mix it up.
Okay. Have you ever listened to Sturgill Simpson?
No.
Dude, so Sturgill Simpson, like, I think it's his second record, is like a huge callback to just kind of like outlaw country, and his third record, it's definitely got a lot more progression to it. It's like country, but kind of folky, I guess, in a way. It's like, I always kind of considered him like alternative country. And he, I guess my girlfriend told me he was outside of the CMA Awards, like not protesting, but just like doing his own thing. Like, doesn't care if he gets an award. He's just like the coolest dude, and his music is so cool. Like, I did a road trip with Carrie Awful, maybe close to a year ago now. I think we went up to Ohio for AIW, and I played some Sturgill Simpson for him, and he fell in love with Sturgill. It's really good because it's not like pop country. It's like, it's got a lot of meaning to it, but yeah, I think you'd enjoy that.
Oh yeah, I'll have to check it out, definitely.
Also, Hank 3 used to play the punk and hardcore club where we had all the fights, the Muse. Hank 3 used to play there a bunch.
That makes sense.
But yeah, let's dive into that wrestling now.
Yeah,
I could talk music forever.
Yeah, we could go. There wasn't really that sense of community at first with music in Tennessee. What about with wrestling? Did you find that quickly in the pro wrestling community there?
Actually, yeah, when I was younger. So when I was like 12 or 13, I'll be 29 on Saturday, actually.
Happy birthday.
When I was like 12 or 13, I found, so it's kind of a funny story. Like, I went to a grocery store with my mom, and I would always get like PWI or the Wrestler or whatever magazine was out. Or I'd sit there and read it and then buy it. And the cashier was just like, "Oh, you like wrestling?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, the guy that does our Coca-Cola deliveries, he's a wrestler." And I was mind blown by this. I was like, wrestlers don't have real jobs. Like, that doesn't make sense. So she was like, "Yeah, he's over there. Go talk to him." So my mom and I went over to talk to him, and I was terrified. Like, if this dude's a wrestler, like, this is everything I wanted to be. Like, why does he have a real job? I don't know what to say to this guy. So his wrestling name is Rick Santel. We go over, and I didn't know what to say to him, and my mom was just like, "Oh yeah, my son's a huge wrestling fan. You know, the cashier told us you're a wrestler. Like, you know, where do you wrestle?" He's like, "Oh, I wrestle for USA Championship Wrestling. You know, they run a couple different places around Nashville." And he's like, "I do security for NWA TNA," and he gave us a few comp tickets so we could check it out. And NWA TNA was on Wednesdays, and USA Championship Wrestling was usually on Saturdays. So I got pretty spoiled by that. And then from there, like, I would meet people, like different fans or even different wrestlers who would be at TNA, and they would tell me about different shows. So USA Championship Wrestling sometimes would run in the small town that I lived in called Laverne, which is like 20 minutes outside of Nashville. And then they started running the fairgrounds in Nashville where TNA was running as well, and they would use like the same ring and all that stuff. Kind of like almost like a feeder system for TNA, which was pretty cool. So I knew a lot of guys that were like getting into TNA at a really young age. And then just through meeting people, I'd find out about like NWA Main Event, or I'd see NWA Main Event on local television, and I'd watch that. And then I'd get to go to that. If like my mom wasn't busy on a Saturday night, she would take me and my best friend Brett. We'd go to that. Or USWO, where we saw, like, I think we may have seen like Chuck Taylor and Ricochet, like when they were super young. And then we had friends that wrestled there too. So like just through different people, like I would make friends at wrestling shows, and I got like one of my lifelong best friends, whose name is Justin. He wrestles by the name JC Crow when he does wrestle. I met him either at TNA or USA Championship Wrestling. So there was like a weird sense of community there. Definitely not like what I experienced with punk and hardcore, because I just feel like punk and hardcore is more tight-knit, where like wrestling was just a bunch of random people in a room that like maybe some of them liked wrestling, maybe some of them were just there for something to do. But I definitely did find like common ground with some people there. And there was this lady that went to wrestling. She went to all, like, pretty much every show. At one point, she gave me a bunch of tapes to borrow, and they were like Music City Championship Wrestling, which was what USA Championship Wrestling was before it was USA Championship Wrestling. And they had like the Hardys when they were like pretty much just like randomly showing up for WWF television. Shannon Moore, the Hurricane, basically anybody who like came through Nashville stopped through Music City Championship Wrestling, or maybe it was Music City Wrestling. So I got to see like a bunch of those tapes, and then like she would just give me random tapes too to watch. So at a young age, like I never really did tape trading, but I had like all this stuff given to me to watch, which was cool. So it's like kind of like the sense of community that I got from wrestling at a young age. And then I fell out for a while and would occasionally go to an independent show to see like Brett wrestle, but never really did much aside from that. After I fell out, after like I started wrestling at a really young age, like 15, 16, and saw a bunch of like really shitty stuff because the South for the longest time wasn't the best place for wrestling. It was kind of like that old school mentality of like, if you screw up, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And like, if you don't do something right, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And just a lot of young kids getting the shit beat out of them. I remember wrestling on a show in Dixon, Tennessee, and seeing this kid get stretched so bad. Like, he was on his stomach, and I guess it was about like a half crab. The vet had him in a half crab, and I just remember the kid laying on his stomach, and the vet just like pulled his foot all the way over his head and had it touch the mat. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if this is the place for me right now.
I think that's going to turn a lot of people away.
I was just going to say, luckily, like, now we're in a place where we've got guys like Kerry and Nick, and we've got Brett and Kevin Koo, and we've got a lot of other great guys, like, in the Nashville area. So we don't really have that mentality anymore. A lot of those guys, like, just fell off. So it's more, like, it's more welcoming, and, like, Kerry helps train people at SWF, I think, on Thursdays. So it's more accepting now. Like, there's less of that old school, just mess them up mentality, and more of a learning curve, I guess you could say, which is nice.
More acceptance, because that's really going to allow anybody to grow.
Yeah.
If somebody's starting off and they're more scared about messing up in a match because they know they're going to get the shit kicked out of them for it, they're not going to fully take in everything they'd learn.
Yeah, it was pretty grim for a while, like, being that young and, like, going to shows and, like, getting receipts for, like, small stuff. Like, my second match, I had a pretty bad concussion because I was given a receipt for messing up my first match, essentially. And you kind of learn real quick just to, like, do your best to not mess up. And I'm glad it's not like that anymore. I'm glad it's more accepting. And we've got guys like Kerry who are willing to take the time to, like, show, I don't want to say kids, but, like, new people and trainees, like, what to do. And he's not just going to, like, rough them up for messing something up. He's going to take the time to, like, take them on the road and help them make connections and, like, kind of show them the right way, you know?
Right. So it really helps somebody understand that if it's meant for them, because if you go back to that old mentality and you treat people that way, you might be turning somebody off from wrestling who might have a really brilliant future in it. And
right.
People may never get to see that, but if you do it the right way, they can really see, hey, am I good at this? You know, they have the experience to grow, learn it the right way. They're going to be able to make a responsible decision for themselves.
Exactly. Wrestling's a weird world, man. It's so weird. Like, just growing up and seeing all of, like, just all these kids get, like, beat up, or, like, just all these vets, like, and it's funny, like, I say vets, but they probably, like, never really left, like, their promotion wherever it was and whatever, like, little town it was, but, like, in their heads, they were, like, the top draw, which, like, I mean, if it's, like, 50 people showing up, then it's the same 50 people every week, like, what are you really accomplishing? Like, what clout do you really have, you know?
Right, yeah, if you're not expanding your audience, you're not growing. You know, more people aren't seeing you, you're not getting the exposure, you're never going to move past, you know, that local promotion. When did you get back into wrestling?
So, when I found, like, punk and hardcore, I was all in on that for a very long time. I think I stopped really paying attention to wrestling maybe, I would watch on and off until about probably 2004 or 5. And then I remember when WWE, ECW started back up, I was pretty interested in that just because, like every other kid that grew up in the 90s and 2000s, I was infatuated with ECW.
Yep.
So I wanted to see what they would do. So I watched a couple episodes of that. It wasn't what I wanted it to be, so I kind of fell out again. And then, like I said, like, I had NWA TNA here, so I got to see guys like CM Punk and stuff. And then I don't remember the exact year, but I remember, like, I was living with Brett, and he was just like, hey, you know CM Punk's, like, in the WWE, right? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, he's like on Raw and stuff. And I was like, no way. And then, like, he's like, yeah, you remember American Dragon? And I was like, yeah. He's like, he's in WWE too. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? So that's about when I started watching again, which is, like, really not that long ago. And, like, in hindsight, it's really not that long ago. But that's, like, what drew me back into watching wrestling was, like, these smaller guys who I, like, grew up reading about or seeing in CM Punk's case, being there. So I had, like, kind of an investment now.
There was a good 10 years where I did not, after the Attitude Era ended, I kind of fell off wrestling till about 2013, and it's been a strange trip catching back up with a lot of stuff on the network.
Yeah, I tried to go back and watch, like, something from like I think 2006, and I just couldn't do it. Like it's just a whole different era there. Like I don't know, something like I try to watch it and something doesn't feel right, and I just like I can sit through a couple matches, but I can't like go through a whole show from like probably 2005 to 2009, maybe. I think 2010 is where I feel like comfortable watching again for some reason.
It's not the same wrestling that I grew up with, but the one thing I always say is with it being 2017, there's so much wrestling out there that you don't just have to watch what's on TV.
Exactly.
There's something for everybody. And if you don't like it, don't watch it.
Yeah. There's more wrestling out there to watch now than there ever has been, especially with like the High Spots Network and Powerbomb TV. And then there's other smaller apps where I don't know if they get updated as much, but like I think Warriors of Wrestling is one on Roku. Indie Wrestling Network used to be a thing. I don't know if it still is. Plus, like YouTube, there's just so much different wrestling to watch. Like it's to the point now where I typically don't watch much WWE. I actually I got pretty jaded just because I was so involved with wrestling for a while. I didn't watch wrestling for a couple of months, and then I just kind of like decided to go back and watch like all of the Thanksgiving SmackDowns for some reason, and that kind of like eased me back into watching more wrestling. I would watch like a pay-per-view here or a pay-per-view there, and I'd like catch up on some indie stuff on like High Spots, and then I recently just got Powerbomb TV, so I've been like going back and watching like some older AIW shows, and I watched something the other day. I don't remember what it was. I think I watched some IWA Mid-South the other day from like the early 2000s, which was really cool because I used to read about that stuff too.
I know I went back, I think about a week ago, and watched the first episode of Raw. And I was just cracking up.
It's so goofy, but so fun.
I think the first match was Yokozuna versus Coco Beware.
Man, I need to go back and revisit that soon. I might do that when I get off work tomorrow.
I just wanted to watch. I was like, I need to watch Raw all the way through and just catch up on everything that I don't remember because either I was too young or I was too busy doing other things that I probably shouldn't have been doing.
A lot of times I catch myself, like, if I don't know what I want to watch, I'll just throw on a random WCW pay-per-view for some reason. I don't know why that's my go-to. Maybe because growing up, I was, like, mostly a WWF kid, and then I'd catch ECW. And I'd watch a little bit of WCW, but I wasn't as involved with WCW. So, like, now, if I just, like if I want to sit down and, like, eat or watch something randomly, it's usually just, like, some random WCW pay-per-view.
Yeah, I do a lot of the WCW as well. I think it's because same way I didn't get to watch a lot of WCW growing up, so it's kind of still foreign to me, like outside obviously of once the Monday Night Wars started and everything like that, but I didn't know a lot about Sting until I was, in my older teens because
right.
I only watched the WWF. Am I allowed to say WWF?
Referencing it in the past,
Is the World Wildlife Foundation
It was the
gonna come
WWF then, though.
Are they the World Wildlife Foundation can't sue a vegan? That's unethical.
You're on the same team, man.
Yeah, we both want the same thing.
I'm pretty sure the World Wildlife Foundation kind of doesn't really much exist in this day and age.
Yeah, I feel like they stuck around to win that lawsuit, and then we're just like, we have the name, it's cool.
That's all they wanted. They wanted to keep their panda logo.
The most petty rivalry in wrestling.
And the panda won.
It's funny, though, because, like, I grew up a WWF kid, but I feel like now a lot of my favorite wrestlers were, like, WCW guys. And, I mean, I guess it's not fair for me to say that I didn't watch a lot of WCW because, like, I didn't really watch a lot of Nitro because I was too busy watching Raw, but I'd literally watch the shit out of WCW Saturday Night. Like, one of my all-time favorite wrestling shows is WCW Saturday Night. Just because you got to see, like, Kevin Sullivan and Alex Wright, and you never really knew like who would show up because it wasn't a big show. So when you did get a bigger name on there, it felt really special. Even like a kid that knows nothing about wrestling, you're just like super hyped on like, I don't know if Goldberg ever showed up and just destroyed somebody. Like I wasn't a huge Goldberg fan growing up, but it was cool when he showed up on that Saturday night show. So I guess it's not totally fair for me to say that I didn't watch a lot of WCW Saturday night. Like I totally looked forward to WCW Saturday night.
Yeah, I don't even think I remember that because I don't think it aired.
Is that on USA?
Yeah,
TV.
It okay. Show.
Yeah, no, yeah, I used to.
Yeah.
If you never really got a chance to watch it, go on YouTube and look up the channel Monsoon Classic. Dude has like the most insane stuff on there from like WCW Saturday Night. I think he's got some world class stuff. Shotgun Saturday Night, WWF Metal, like just the most insane playlists on there.
That's sweet. I'm gonna have to check that out. Everybody listening, check that out because that sounds fucking awesome.
Monsoon Classics out there doing the Lord's work, putting up all that shit. I don't know how his channel is up, but yeah. I am so glad that it exists.
He's got to be in some other country where there's probably not. Well, no, then it wouldn't play in this country still.
Yeah, I think he's actually out of Ohio, like Cleveland area.
Maybe.
So, like,
maybe
I'm not sure how he gets away with it, but nobody, like, flag him or anything because he's doing great shit.
Maybe it's because he's from Cleveland. They're just like, all right, we'll let this slide.
He could be like an internet billionaire, and he just bought all the rights to that shit, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna play it for people.
That's what I'd like to believe, because it's literally like my girlfriend, she was like really into WWF and like the Attitude Era and stuff, like loved Jeff Hardy and all that. So like she didn't know like a lot of the WCW Saturday Night stuff. So there was one day, I think it was just like a weekend we had off. I just played a bunch of WCW Saturday Night matches, and I'm not sure if she loved or hated it, but she got to learn about so many different wrestlers, and like she knows that I have a deep, deep love for Tracy Smothers. So we got to watch a bunch of WCW Tracy Smothers matches, and like she just got to see me light up like a Christmas tree when Tracy Smothers came on the TV. So yeah, Monsoon Classic is great.
Yeah, my girlfriend hated wrestling up until about 2 years ago, and slowly after being forced to watch Raw every week with me and my roommate, she started liking it. You know, she got invested in the storylines. Going back and like having her watch like the ECW with me, because that was such a big part of what I liked as a kid. She had no idea what it was, you know, and now she actually likes more than just what she sees on Raw, and likes it when we watch, you know, the independent stuff, and she'll go to a show with me. So it's really cool that, you know, she first hated it and I slowly just put it into her brain and it worked. Now I'm trying to do it with her 4-year-old nephew, so hopefully that'll work, but I don't think he's ready for a live show yet.
It's funny because like a lot of people are really like apprehensive to give wrestling a shot, but if you watch the right stuff, it's so easy to digest, and it's like it can be the most captivating thing, or it can just be the most entertaining thing. It can literally be whatever form of entertainment that you crave at that moment. You just have to find the right thing to watch. And I think if more people would just sit down and take wrestling at face value rather than like looking to critique and criticize everything, like probably the whole world would be wrestling fans.
Right. I think people are too concerned. Like, obviously people think, oh, that's just fake, and they don't, you know, understand the risk involved and what's actually going on out there, and what these people are doing, and how much work and how much effort it takes just to go out there and have a match. And I think if people understood that and the time and these people put into it, they would appreciate it more and try to get invested into it.
Yeah, it's always been funny to me that people discredit wrestling so quickly and say it's fake, when like, I mean, the 90s and early 2000s just ran rampant with just chair shots and just like people getting blasted in the head left and right. And even if some of that stuff was gimmicked, you're still getting hit in the head, which is not good for you. You're still getting thrown like essentially on the ground. There's like a thin layer of padding over some wood and metal. Like a lot of people are just so quick to discredit wrestling and say it's fake and like that doesn't hurt, but like literally like you have to condition yourself to throw yourself at the ground over and over and over again, and you just become one giant walking bruise for a while until your body finally toughens up. And you know, like going through wrestling training in high school, you know, that was like a really, I don't want to say tough point, but it was like a point where like we would go to school and everybody would be like, oh, you guys do that fake shit, like it's not real, you guys know it's not real, right? And like there were days we would like be limping through the hallway. I remember getting like stingers in training and like having to go to school the next day, or like even when I had a concussion, like I still had to go to school, and then people just like telling me it's fake, and I'm just like, no, like, and you sound like the kid that can't let go. You're like, no, it's real, but like you're literally going through training, getting the shit kicked out of you like just about every day, and people are telling you it's fake. So it's almost disheartening, but you know, like you're living it. So like no matter what they say, you know how bad it hurts.
Exactly.
I've said it before, and it's the way I look at it. It's almost like an extreme sport. Like you're out there doing stunts, you know, you've practiced them and everything, but you know, you're doing them live, and you're doing stuff where you could seriously injure yourself, and you're trying to pull off a really cool move, like a skateboarder.
Yeah, it's just like the margin for error is like so thin. Literally, like you could slip and drop somebody, and like that's their neck, or like that's their life. Like broken bones can happen so fast, concussions can happen so fast, like all of it can happen so fast, and it's just always been so wild to me that people are just so quick to discredit it. So let's hopefully we can condition the rest of the world to, you know, at least not say, hey, that's fake. That would make me happy.
We'll just start putting everybody in a headlock and be like, is that fake? Is that fake?
I'm not working a wrestle, man. I'm trying to take your head off.
Tell us how Southern Underground Pro came to be.
So I guess it was a while ago. I had texted Kevin Koo, and I was kind of like interested in running bot shows like at a bar here in town, but didn't really know like the logistics of doing it. So I kind of just like got busy with other stuff, kind of never came back to it. And then Kevin Koo actually moved up from Atlanta to Nashville, and texted me, and he was like, I kind of want to run a show. And I was like, well, I'd love to help. And he was like, well, that's kind of why I texted you. So then I believe that was in like January of this year. And we set the date for April for our first show, which was a one-night tournament to crown our Bone Storm champion. So basically we wanted to do something different for Nashville. And like, it's been a while since anyone's really run in Nashville aside from a few different companies. Like we have a company called Freedom Pro that runs at the fairgrounds. It's a fun show, but it's more like your ex-WWE, WCW, ECW names with a couple indie names mixed in. And then we had a show recently called Overdrive Pro, which had like Ricochet and John Morrison and some other guys. But nobody was really doing what we did. We wanted to bring in like just independent wrestlers, not like X names or anything like that. So we decided, we pretty much handpicked just a crop of guys for the first show, and just all guys we thought were really hungry and young and wanted to make a point, and we wanted to bring real independent wrestling back to Nashville. So we ended up running at this really small bar called the Cobra in East Nashville, and it's so small that a 16-foot ring barely fit in there. We crammed, I think, 80 or 90 people in the room, and we put on one of the most insane wrestling shows that I've ever witnessed in my life. The sound guy who was in charge of everything that night had literally never seen a wrestling show in his life, had never watched wrestling at all, and said, I want this back. I want to do this again, but I want to do it outside where we have more room. So we said, okay, and we went back. We do a bi-monthly schedule, so we did April, June, August, October, and then we're taking 4 months off. But basically we got together, we put our heads together, and we just wanted to introduce Nashville to wrestling that it didn't have. We wanted to be the guys to bring that to Nashville and bring in like a lot of our friends and just make wrestling fun in our city again, like not necessarily rely on names. Just we knew we had a market, even if it was like 20 people, we knew we had a market and we could make it work. And we've been fortunate enough to draw like over 100 people at every show. So it's been a really humbling experience, honestly.
So when you first started, how do you go in building your reputation as a new promotion in the area? What are some of the things you had to do? One
thing that I will forever hammer into people's heads is you have to go hang up physical flyers around town. I believe that is a key part, and people, it's so simple and so silly, but I think it's a very key part to people actually believing that you're going to do it. Because if you're going to take the time to go around and find all the community boards at all the restaurants and comic book stores, or like just the empty window spaces where people will let you hang up flyers, you're going to ask maybe 100 places if you can hang up flyers, and 75 of them might say no, but 25 of them might say yes. Well, that's 25 places where your flyer's hanging up where, who knows how many people could see it. So I believe that physical flyering your town is very important, and I think that helped us a lot with credibility. That and just like somewhat of an internet presence. We were very selective in who we booked. We had the Carnies on our first show, and Carrie and Nick have a great following around the area. We had Kurt Stallion, who ended up winning the whole tournament to become our Bone Storm champion. He, was in the process of doing the top prospect tournament, so we had that steam. And then we had guys who were really hungry from like A&W who hadn't really been featured as much in different places. So they were building a reputation, and they were easy to find online, so you could watch their stuff. We just tried to make it as accessible as possible. If anybody ever had any questions, we were honest. We basically we just took all of our punk rock ethics from booking shows and put it into a wrestling show, and it just turned out to be like lightning in a bottle that first show, and it's continued.
So when you have that first show, what's going through your mind day of show before anything has begun, before the fans have started to arrive, the talent shows up?
So I think we had like 60 pre-sale tickets, which doesn't sound like a lot, but to us we were just like, oh my god, we sold like one pre-sale ticket, like that's insane. So we're like, we have the ring in there, and we're like, oh man, this is a tight fit, and all the wrestlers are there, and like we're all just kind of hanging out. And I just had the thought of like, what if nobody shows up? Like, we've sold all these tickets online, but like, what if nobody shows up? Like, nobody knows who we are. Like, nobody has a reason to come here, essentially. But, like, that was my biggest fear for some reason. Even though we sold the tickets, I was just like, what if nobody shows up? You know, what if this tiny room isn't packed out? So that was honestly my biggest concern. And I don't know why that was my biggest concern, but, you know, that was just the one thing that was at the front of my mind. I can tell you that that feeling was absolutely taken away by the end of the night when I found out that, like, we had to turn people away because we just couldn't fit any more people in the room. And then there were people, like, the place that we ran, it's a bar and a venue. So the bar is separate from the venue. There's a wall that separates them. And I believe it was my girlfriend who was running the door told me that there were people standing on the other side of the wall listening because they wanted to be in there so bad, but we just couldn't fit them in at the time. So, like, they wanted to be a part of it so bad, they just stood on the opposite side of the wall and listened for a while until some people left and we could squeeze them in.
So that obviously shows that the fans really enjoyed what you were doing, that they were really interested in what was going on, because like you said earlier, it was something new to the Nashville scene, with it being just independent performers opposed to, you know, guys who had their stints in the WWE, WCW, or ECW.
Right. We named it Southern Underground Pro, but I don't think any of us really fully understood how underground it felt at the time. Like, looking back, like, the first show was free on YouTube. The audio is a little messed up, but, like, the show itself is, I'm so proud of it. Just, like, the entire feel, the vibe, the roster, the crowd, just, like, it's got such an underground feel. It's absolutely, it feels just like a hardcore show, honestly.
So the show ends, the fans have a chance to react. What were some of the lessons that you take away? Obviously, you're happy with the show, but what were some of the lessons, the takeaways, the things that you wanted to improve on for the next show?
Well, I think the first thing that we definitely realized we needed to do was run the second show in a bigger place. We definitely did not measure correctly when we were measuring for the ring. That was one of the biggest lessons we learned, was to always account for, like, an extra couple of feet just in case. So that was probably, like, the number one thing that we took away from that right out of the gate. Second would be just to not really stress as much. And it's hard to say, like, in the moment, because, you know, we have a pretty small operation with just, like, 3 to 4 of us at any time doing the majority of all the tasks. But I know my poor girlfriend, whenever she's doing the door, which she hasn't had to do the past couple of shows because we've started running a different venue. But, like, I can only imagine how stressful that is. Or, like, Kevin's usually doing, like, back of house stuff with talent, and I'm usually front of house, like, if anybody needs anything. So we delegate things to where everybody's got, like, a reasonable amount of stuff to do. And basically what we decided to do was just, like, sit down and say, okay, who wants to do these tasks? After the first show, we were just like, okay, who wants to do these tasks? Who wants to do these tasks? And it was all just like, we all picked what we felt the most comfortable doing, which I think, rather than, like, forcing somebody to do something, that was the better route, is just having people do what they felt more comfortable with. And just really trusting your gut instinct. We knew that we were booking great wrestlers, and we knew, like, basically my whole mindset is, like, just to remember that we're not out to change the world. We're just here to entertain the people that show up for our shows. Like, look at the big picture, but keep it small for now, because, like, we have anywhere from, like, 100 to 150, like, diehard people that'll come to pretty much all of our shows and love it, and they will do anything to help spread the word for us. So the other big lesson that we've all really kept in mind is just to make sure we always do right by them. Like, we definitely pay very close attention to the Twitter when people, you know, have suggestions for people they want to see. If it's feasible, we look into it. If it's not, then, like, we at least entertain it just so they know that we see and hear their requests and it doesn't go unacknowledged. But we always just want to make sure that we take care of the people that take care of us.
Right, because you can't turn away the people that are there to support you. You got to make sure that they're happy, because if they go away, it's not going to run for very much longer in anything that you're doing. Exactly.
Another lesson that we learned is just to, like, the turnaround time for getting the video up. We didn't realize the buzz that the first show had. We had a guy that lives in Texas. He flew out to PWG and then flew from California to Nashville for our first show, and he's turned out to be a great friend and promotes us constantly. He's actually, his name is Jeremy. He's part of the Making Towns Classic. He's a great guy.
He's an awesome guy. Great. That's
he's the best. finding out that he made like that weekend was like, it was mind blowing to all of us. Like somebody, you know, was just that interested in what we were doing to go from Texas to California, from California to Nashville. And it, like, I think that was one of the things where we were just like, we always have to do right by these people because they might not be able to make every show, but now we're on, like, we have a couple of shows on High Spots. We have, you know, we just signed up with Powerbomb. So like, we want to get these shows out so the people that can't be there can see it as fast as possible and, you know, stay up to date and, you know, not be behind. That way when we do have another show, they know exactly what's going on.
Right, they can be there, and if they can't be there, they know they have a way to watch it.
Exactly.
Now, we touched on how the Nashville scene was. We kind of touched on where you guys fit in. Where do you think you guys fit in the entire scope of independent wrestling in comparison to what's going on across the country and the world?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think we have a very unique spot because right now in America, especially like between the Midwest, the East Coast, and the Southeast, there's a lot of really good promotions. Like you have like all of the Scenic City events in Chattanooga, which is about 2 hours south of where I'm at. You have Black Label Pro in Crown Point, Indiana, which is about 40 minutes away from Chicago. AIW in Cleveland. Black Label Pro and AIW probably put on some of the most diverse cards between like the most off the wall like like WWF, WCW names, ECW names, and mixing it with just like the hottest up and coming independent talent. And then you've got like CWF Mid-Atlantic, Nova Pro, all these promotions, and it's cool because it's almost like we're creating almost kind of like a new loop. So to give you an example, at our last show, we had the Anarchy Triple Crown champion, Gunnar Miller. He defended, and that's another great place, Anarchy out of Georgia. So he defended the Anarchy Triple Crown championship at Anarchy in Georgia. He went up to Nova Pro, defended the title there against Tim Donst, and then came down here and defended the title against KLD. So I think where we fit in is just like where we need to fit in, honestly. If we're just that Sunday show that makes sense for someone to complete a loop, then that's cool. But ultimately, like, I think it's a really good time because we're just different than a lot of other places right now. We're not family friendly, but we are family. I consider everybody that comes to our shows to be a friend, and I've actually formed some pretty solid friendships with people that come to our shows. And we've just been very fortunate to work with other promotions like Freelance and Anarchy to have their titles defended. So, you know, it seems more like companies are willing to work together and really create a bit of a loop or a bit of just like almost like a territorial system. So I kind of guess that's where we fit, just like being what we need to be to like complete the puzzle.
And that's got to help with storylines.
That makes sense.
Because you said you do a show every other month currently, and you're taking 4 months off. But if even if somebody goes to every show, that's a long time to remember the storyline. So if you can work with other promotions and have that storyline kind of flow through them as well, and those fans pay attention to that as well, it's going to keep them more entertained when they come back around, you know, to Southern Underground Pro, because more has been going on. They're still aware and they're still invested.
Right. And that's one thing I have to credit everybody that we book. I have to give them credit to Angelus Lane, Dominic Guarini, Brett Eisen. Like they're our top three heels, and they're not afraid. Like if I post something on Twitter, they're not afraid to shit talk me just to like kind of stir the pot a little bit so people don't forget. Like the other day, I posted something about just like me being at work, and I almost fell into a trash compactor, and Angelus just responded with, "I wish you would have." And we just kind of snowballed from there. But like it's little stuff like that I love about wrestling, where people are willing to go the extra mile. Even though they're booked all these different places, they don't forget that they still have a spot somewhere else, and they're willing to like just keep the momentum going, even if we're taking a few months off.
Right, yeah, and that's good that talent is invested in the success of your promotion, because that's only going to help you even further, and they're not just thinking about themselves. Yeah,
we have a lot of people who are really invested in what we're doing, and they want to make it work. They want to make it the best it can possibly be, and I'm just very lucky and very fortunate and very grateful, to all those people that are willing to put in the work and willing to put the company on their back, and just willing to go the extra mile to make sure that we do stay relevant after this long break. And I'll tell you straight up, like I am super nervous about a 4-month break, because it is a long time for people to forget, what we're doing. But we've got some things in the works to, try to stay relevant for, while we're gone. We've been pushing, the fact that our show is on Powerbomb TV now. And a lot of people have been giving it good reviews. Some guy that lives in England was actually just tweeting about it today, which is mind-blowing to me. If you would have told me that somebody in England was watching something that we put out, I would have never believed you.
It's got to be a good feeling.
Man, it's incredible because, we're just some little southern independent company, and, we're lucky to be on a platform like Powerbomb and High Spots, and it's just cool that people actually take notice. And like Powerbomb and High Spots were both great at helping promote us. So forever grateful of both of those platforms and streaming services. But we've got some stuff lined up to help stay relevant over the break. Like some we're trying to be very vigilant about putting out content like free matches and promos and like just little things. Like I said, just to stay relevant, because it is a very long break.
Right, and we've kind of touched on it with social media earlier, where we're fortunate to be in this day and age because it kind of had the ability to take a 4-month break, where maybe a couple of years ago when social media wasn't as big, you wouldn't be able to do that and still remain relevant. So the fact that you're able to put out those free videos, be able to do the promos, it like you said, exactly keeps you relevant to the times.
Right, and like I feel like before the age of social media, if you were to take a 4-month break, you'd pretty much have to come back with like no previous storylines and just totally load your card with like ex-Fed names and just start from scratch. And I'm thankful that we can pick up. Really, I'm thankful that we ended so hot and like with so much chaos, because we ended like, I got a comment on Instagram the other day from a video that I posted, and this kid that comes to our shows, he said that somebody looked at him at the end of our show and was like, was that real? Like, that was the biggest compliment to me. Like, I got chucked off a stage and stabbed in the head with a bunch of forks, and somebody thought like somebody really wanted to kill me. So, like, I'll take that every single time.
He's got to wait 4 months to find out, so there's the anticipation factor there as well that can keep you relevant.
Exactly, and I think they'll be very happy with what comes out of that, because it's going to be a labor of love, and it's going to be I'm trying to think of how I can describe it without giving it away, but it's going to be more chaos than how we ended in October. So I think it'll be worth the wait.
Oh boy,
everybody loves more chaos.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that I'm good at in life, it's creating a lot of chaos. So
that skill could come in handy, like someday down the road in the apocalypse. Yeah.
It helped in hardcore, and it's helped in wrestling so far. So I've got my little outlets for my to let my chaos go. So luckily, I have people around me that trust some of the zany ideas that I have, and they fit into certain places. So we'll see what February holds.
I mean, obviously it's working for you because, I mean, up to this point, I mean, you got to be happy with having 100 people at every show, because that, like you said, that's really good, especially for somebody who's still within their first year.
Man, when we turned people away at the first show, it was cool, but it was heartbreaking at the same time, because you want everybody to experience it together. And then we did our second show, which was an outside show, which was a total gamble, but it turned out to be a lot of fun. And I did a death match with Southern Wrestling, that legend by the name of Tank, and the fact that we had a death match on the show kind of turned a few people away, but I think it intrigued more people than it turned away people. So we still came out with about the same crowd. And then I'll tell you, like, straight up, when we had Joey Janela coming in August, that was the biggest show that we had. I think it was like it was just shy of like 200 people, which is mind blowing to us. And to a lot of people that doesn't sound like a lot, but Nashville's never been like a quote unquote super indie market. I've had a lot of friends in the wrestling business tell me that, we were pretty much set up to fail because of what we were doing. And, I think that they think we're out to like cash in when we're not. We're just here, like, it's like with hardcore. You don't book shows to get rich. You book shows because you want to see the bands and you want to provide an escape for yourself and the people that are going through the same things that you're going through. So we kind of just book wrestling shows on that same mentality of like, as long as we make enough money to cover everybody and cover all the expenses and have enough to go into the next show, like, we're more than happy. Like, none of us pocket any money from anything. It all goes back, into the company, into the shows. So us being told that we're set up to fail from the start was just like, we never even listened to that, because we knew, like, we're not trying to do the same thing as anybody else.
Right, and it's got to feel good that, even with people saying that, you ignored what they said because you understood what you were all about. It's got to feel good that you've proven them wrong already.
Right. It's fantastic because, like, the people that come to our shows, it's such a ragtag crowd, and I love every single one of them. Like, I don't know if you would ever see another crowd like ours.
You can check out the Excite crowd.
Yeah, you should come to an Excite show sometime.
Oh, I'd love to. I'm not familiar with Excite, so I'd love to see it.
That's our local one up here in upstate.
They are on Twitch.
Okay.
They got a big one coming up on. Well, it's going to be the opening ad on the show, but they got a big one coming up with Austin Aries versus Sean Carr for the title, and then you got Jimmy Jacobs versus Joe Gacy. And
Wow.
Joey Ryan was here back in the show in September, and he even commented on some of the chants that the Binghamton crowd came up with for him. So we are a sleazy city, I will say that.
Well, you know, for us, like it's not even so much the chants; it's just like the mix of people. Like we get, you know, like diehard wrestling fans. We get people that travel. We get, you know, at the first show, we literally just had barflies that were at the bar that heard all the ruckus next door and just like paid. I think we did $10 our first show, paid the $10 to come in, and we're just like, holy shit, this is incredible. You know, so like our crowd is just such a weird mix of people, and it's fantastic. It's punks, it's college kids, it's wrestling fans, it's not wrestling fans, it's parents, it's, you know, it's pure insanity. And like just to look out while I'm doing commentary and see the mix of people, it's so cool to see so many different types of people in one room just enjoying the same thing. You know, no matter what their differences may be in the outside world, they can come together for like 2 or 3 hours at a Southern Underground Pro show, and like none of that matters.
I'm pretty sure if we moved our crowd to down there, they would probably love what you're doing.
Fit right in.
It sounds just like what they're all about.
I would love to have any of them here if they would love to make the trip in February.
We'll just mail them to you. Well, I think that's illegal.
We'll come up with like a teleportation system. Send them there.
Just like caravan or something, covered wagons.
We could do like the
Oregon Trail.
No.
It'd be the Appalachian Trail. No. Yeah, exactly.
So they make a
it's perfect.
They make a board game version of Oregon Trail. Okay, and it's the worst fucking game ever. You die on.
Oh, I can imagine.
You die on turn one.
It's as bad as playing it on the computer, where you're like, "Oh, I think we're doing good, guys. We're gonna make it to the end," and then boom, you die of dysentery. Next person, boom, you died because some rain came and flooded your whole entire camp. Goodbye.
Yeah, we don't have that on the Appalachian Trail. We just have mountain people and moonshine and stuff like that, I think.
All right.
That's fun.
No dysentery, so you're safe.
Sweet. Okay.
Dysentery's everywhere, man. You got to watch out for it.
Who wants to go to Oregon anyways? Well,
yeah, I mean, Tennessee, like, it's chill, I guess. Nashville's pretty fun. It's growing, so it's pretty cool. If you can make it through the mountains, then you're good.
Yeah, I can eat some moss on my way across the trail. Find some pine cones.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, what do vegans eat in the wild?
Squirrels, because we're not stupid. Like I love that question though. Like, not to get off topic, but when somebody's like, "Oh, well, what are you gonna do in a situation where you're stuck in the middle of the wilderness and all you can do is eat an animal?" I go, "I'm gonna eat a fucking animal, dude."
Right, life or death. Like,
right.
Come on, dude. Let's not be an idiot.
Yeah, I'm not starving right now. I'm good. I'll just go with the kale.
Kale's actually pretty delicious. I really do enjoy kale, and I really do enjoy seaweed.
Yeah, I mean, if you like sushi, you already have a taste for the seaweed, so you might as well try it in some other areas, like in salads and stuff.
Seaweed chips. Seaweed chips are so good.
Kale chips are good.
I put spirulina. It's a blue-green seaweed, and it's like the most nutritional food in the world. I think 1 teaspoon has like 2 grams of protein. So
wow.
It's really, you got to be careful where you buy it from, because apparently this seaweed like absorbs whatever in its natural environment. So you're going to want to steer clear of the stuff from China and Japan, and probably just get the stuff from California with the nice USD approved logo.
Nah, get that stuff from the Fukushima radiation ocean.
You'll be a superhero in no time.
So you can become
be like actual Popeye, like you're eating spinach and you get these huge muscles.
Or my skin just gets irradiated and I turn into a ghoul from Fallout.
That's fun too.
No, I like skin not with flesh wounds. So, back to wrestling. What is it going to take in your eyes, and I know you're probably a long way from this, at the end of the day, for Southern Underground Pro to be considered a complete success?
Man. Short-term goal, have our April show. That'll be our 1-year mark. Long-term goal, we'd really like to have tag team titles. We'd like to set up a tag team division. Honestly, like, this is kind of a pipe dream, I think, right now. But if I had to, like, label something to where I'd feel like we were a total success, it's always been a dream of mine ever since I first stepped foot in there for a wrestling show, to run a wrestling show at the Nashville Fairgrounds, just because the history is so rich there. Anybody that's been through Nashville and wrestled in Nashville at any given point has wrestled at the fairgrounds. So at some point, I think if we ever ran a show at the fairgrounds, and I'm not even going to say sold it out, but like made enough money to like cover all expenses, pay all the talent, and come out just a little ahead for the next show, even if it wasn't at the fairgrounds after that, I would consider that a complete success, just because I'm so sentimental with that building. That's where I fell in love with independent wrestling. That's where I realized it was real and it was something that I could be a part of. So ultimately, if I could just run one show there, I would probably consider it like all-time success.
That's a really cool goal to have, like a local goal like that. And then, I mean, you're probably gonna shed some tears when that happens,
dude. Like, so I'm not like I'm not a crier at all. I've never been. But so when we had our first show, I did ring announcing, and I had never done ring announcing before. I pretty much just treated it like I was at a punk show or a hardcore show. And I got like a little misty-eyed when my best friend walked out. And like, side note, growing up, when we started backyard wrestling, like me, Brett, and our buddy Travis like formed a really tight friendship just through wrestling, and then we all found like hardcore together, so we were like really close. And then just a couple years ago, Travis passed away, and Brett and I kind of shared a moment like in the ring when he came out. Like, I kind of got misty-eyed. I was just so proud of everything that we had done and that he was there and he was a part of it. And I just thought about Travis now. He, you know, how he would have been so happy, and he would have been involved in some way, because, you know, we all loved wrestling. We all loved just the underground culture. So just seeing that, like, everything coming together at once, and then just like thinking of one of my best friends who couldn't be there and how proud he would have been. It was a really cool feeling. And yeah, 100%, if we ever do a show at the fairgrounds, I will at least shed like 6 tears.
That's perfectly fine. It's like every time Bill Belichick returns to Giant Stadium, he cries because that's the team he truly wants to coach.
Man.
It's a true story. He cries every time.
I know nothing about baseball, so I feel bad about not knowing that.
That was football.
Oh, see, I know nothing about the sport.
It's cool. It's cool.
I was thinking like Little Giants, I think.
Hey, I love that movie. Rick Moranis is the man.
Oh, I love Rick Moranis. I totally just made a jackass out of myself on this podcast. So
it's cool.
No, you were thinking San Francisco Giants. We got you.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Sure. Yeah. I didn't know there were Giants in San Francisco.
No, that's the baseball team.
I don't know what's going on anymore.
It doesn't matter.
Philosophy, once we stop talking about wrestling.
We're having fun. That's all that matters.
We took a hard left, and, you know, we went off course a little bit.
It's okay. Who would be some of your dream bookings? If there's some guys out there that, you know, like you kind of mentioned it with the hardcore punk scene, you know, you booked bands that you wanted to see. If there were some dream matches out there for you that you would like to book for Southern Underground Pro, who would they be?
One of them is like kind of a possibility right now. I grew up, you know, with the NWA all around me. We had all sorts of NWA affiliates around Nashville. So I actually got to go to Clarksville, Tennessee, which is about 45 minutes north of where I live, and go to a promotion called Tried and True this past Friday, Tried and True Pro Wrestling. And Tim Storm, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, was there. And I got to talk to him about like possibly bringing him in for a booking. You know, got to go through the proper channels to get the title defended and all that stuff, which is totally fine. But there's a guy out of Chattanooga, Tennessee that I really believe in could be like the next big breakout star in professional wrestling once the right person sees him, and his name is Gunnar Miller. So I'm essentially doing everything that I can on the internet to get Billy Corrigan and Dave Lagana to bring Tim Storm to Nashville, Tennessee to defend the NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Gunnar Miller, because I think that would be just a fantastic match. Like, Gunnar is such a young up-and-comer with the craziest story of how he got into professional wrestling, and Tim Storm is like, I feel like he's like the new like guard dog of the NWA, where he's got a death grip on that title. He defeated Nick Aldis. He defeated Josephus Brody. He showed up at House of Hardcore. He's got an invitation at Cage of Death for CZW, and I'm literally doing everything in my power to try to get him to Southern Underground Pro in February so he can wrestle Gunnar Miller. I really want to book Nick Gage. I'm absolutely fascinated by Nick Gage as a person. had the chance to talk to him at Black Label Pro. He seemed pretty interested in coming down. Who I want to book the Rock and Roll Express really fucking bad. I've been trying to reach out to the Hurricane and get Hurricane Helms out here. Somebody pitched a tag team match to me the other day. It was the Carnies and somebody. I don't remember who it was. Damn, I can't remember who it was. It was a really good one too. Who else would I want to book? I've kind of really just been wanting to book Glacier lately. I don't know why. I think because he's close, and I loved like Glacier and Mortis as a kid. Independent talent. I really would like to book Keith Lee at some point. He's like on every show, but I feel like him and Nashville would be really cool. I'd like to book Michael Elgin. I've been a huge Michael Elgin fan for a long time. He's such a great dude, and he's doing great stuff with the Glory Pro. He's been a big supporter of Southern Underground Pro, like retweeting us from his personal Twitter and Glory Pro as well. So I'd love to bring him in. We use a lot of, the Glory Pro guys as we do the AIW guys. And then I put this out there on another podcast, so I'm going to put it out on here. I would love to bring in Tom Lawler and do the death match that he wants to do, and I would love to be his opponent in that death match.
You are a brave man.
Even if we don't do that at Southern Underground Pro, if somebody just wanted to essentially book my funeral and book me in a death match with Tom Lawler, we can make that happen. So,
well, here at the Gimmick Table, we want you to survive. So,
but people could get a combo ticket.
I think Tom would put me through the ringer, but I'm pretty tough, so he might break something, but I don't think he could kill me.
Yeah, hardcore kids don't die.
Exactly. We just get dumber.
Yeah. Less and less brain cells after every show.
Man, no kidding. Like headbanging and moshing and like fighting and stuff. Like I got real dumb real quick.
And I can't. I'm 32 and I can barely hear. And I know it's because of the music.
So like we talked about how like before we started recording and like we were just talking DMs, we talked about how I'm a cook and like I have to wear these shitty Crocs to work so I don't bust my ass every day. And there's like no support in these shoes, and just from like stomping on like concrete floors at shows and stuff and like wrestling, like after standing for like anywhere from like 9 to 12 hours a day and like running around all day, the drive home is like the worst part of my day because I sit, and like sitting is cool, but like there's something wrong with my left foot and I don't know what it is. It's like I get out of my car and I've got like the most serious limp until I get inside, and it's like I have to walk for like 5 minutes before my foot feels like kind of okay. So like I'm sitting on the bed now. When I get up, I'm probably going to limp just because there's something weird with my left foot now. And I kind of attribute that to stomping back and forth at hardcore shows and all the dumb stuff I did backyard wrestling and pro wrestling. So all that stuff takes a toll,
Yeah, hardcore shows or skateboarding, whatever you want to call it. I've hurt myself plenty of times, and I like to call that limp though because I had the same thing you're talking about. Especially if I'm sitting like Indian style or something, I get up, my ankle will start to hurt, and I call that my gangster limp. I'm just like, I'm hard. I got shot 9 times.
I mean, it definitely shows that you've been through some shit, whether it's skateboarding or wrestling, and like, I'm gonna say, fortunately for me, I could never skate. Because I feel like if I could have skated, I would have ended up with way more injuries. Because I would have been like, ooh, what can I do? What dumb thing can I do with the skateboard today? Here's concussion number 78. Ooh, next week, let's try to jump over the house. I don't know. I would have done some dumb shit like that.
Yeah, that's what I was known for. So, how do our listeners stay up to date with Southern Underground Pro?
We have a Facebook page. It's just Southern Underground Pro. We have an Instagram. It's SUP_GRAPS, SUP_Graps. And Twitter's the same thing. And we're most active on Twitter. It's at SUP_GRAPS, at SUP_Graps. You can keep up with us there. If you want to check out a show, we have our first show, The Battle for Bone Storm, for free on YouTube. It's under Southern Underground Pro. You can check it out there. We're also on High Spots Network and Powerbomb TV. We're trying to get all of our shows on Powerbomb TV, so, hang in there with us as we get everything up there. My girlfriend's laptop was recently stolen, and we had one of our shows on there. It was our August show, and we're trying to get the file for that so we can have all of our shows and send them all to Powerbomb, so the whole catalog is there. I think that's it. Yeah.
Now, you also run a wrestling podcast. I did get a chance to listen to a little bit of your episode with Papa Hales. A very good episode. Tell us how our audience give you a listen there as well, because I love promoting other podcasts. It's fun to listen to somebody who's not just doing the typical wrestling show where we're just going to review a bunch of stuff. And I'm sorry to all my friends out there that do wrestling review shows. I still love you.
When we first started, we didn't really have a direction, and we kind of like tried that and we figured out very quickly that it wasn't for us because at the time I wasn't watching a lot of WWE because I didn't have cable, so I would just catch like pay-per-views and stuff. But yeah, we do like an interview-based type deal similar to this, and it's called Kick At It 2. You can find us on, we're mostly active on Twitter, at KOAT Podcast, same handle for Instagram, at KOAT Podcast, on iTunes and SoundCloud and Stitcher. So if you want to check us out, it'd be awesome.
Definitely check them out, guys. And before we wrap things up today, we do a little game where we unhinge the gimmick table, and my co-host here has come up with a game for you.
Okay.
I think you'll enjoy what it's based about if I think he did what I told him to do, but he doesn't listen,
if I did what you told me to do. Whatever. You mentioned Home Alone 2 earlier, but we're going to bring it back to Home Alone Uno, the original.
Okay.
You're pretty familiar with that movie, I would assume?
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times.
Yeah, it's, 90s kids. All right, so I was thinking I would like go through some of the traps and stuff, and then instead of just like it being a normal trap, there'd be like a wrestler there who fucks them up as well. I'll just give you an example, and they don't have to be like WWE stars. They could be like any wrestler you want. So you guys get up to the front porch. There's the hot doorknob, and then Roman Reigns spears you right down the icy steps. And I know Matt's gonna hate that.
All right. Well, look, I don't hate Roman Reigns, all right?
All right, so then obviously you're going to go try the basement.
All right, so that means we've got the nail on the stair, right?
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so I've got the nail on the stair. Thinking death match. Thinking Matt Tremont. Maybe let's see if I'm on the same page as you guys. You had Roman Reigns spearing down the stairs, so I'm thinking maybe Matt Tremont, and I step on the nail, and that turns into a powerbomb off the stairs.
Oh, that's gonna be rough. All right, so somehow you make it up the stairs into the kitchen.
Oh man, I love this.
Ever. Good for you, man. You did a great job on this one. I'm so proud of you.
I'm trying to think of the kitchen. I remember
there's some firecrackers
BB gun.
and the BB gun. Yeah.
Okay, which one do you want to go with here? The BB gun or the firecrackers?
Do them both.
All right. So if we're doing the BB gun first, no, actually, okay, we'll go with firecrackers because I actually saw this in a match. I went to Carnage Cup, and I think it was John Rare and Spider Boudreaux did firecrackers. So I'll have to go with both of them for the firecrackers. So we'll do firecrackers, and then they give me like a 3D on the counter or something.
You're getting fucked up, dude.
Dude, I'm telling you, I come up with the worst ideas. BB gun. Ooh, BB gun. The only other gun I can think of that's acceptable in wrestling is a staple gun. If we're thinking staple gun, then I'm unfortunately going back to death. Man, this is all revolving around death matches.
Well,
I mean,
it's in the same realm here.
Yeah.
I feel like I read about somebody doing an unlucky 13 staple gun match recently. Who was it? Was it Homicide? No, I don't think it was Homicide. Fuck it. If we're gonna do another death match, then I'm just gonna go with Tank. Because Tank is the fucking man. So I'll just say Tank has a BB gun. Tank shoots me in the head with the BB gun, and then he choke slams me on light bulbs because that actually happened.
Fun times. So you limp your way out of the kitchen there, and you make it into the living room. And what was it? Oh, it was a bunch of broken Christmas ornaments, and like the micro machines were all set up there.
Okay, all right. Micro machines. If I had to go with micro machines, then I'd pick my buddy Kevin Koo because he just did Legos, and I feel like any kid that had micro machines probably had Legos as a kid. So I'm actually going to let him take a suplex onto the micro machines this time because I'm tired of getting slammed on stuff.
There you go. Fight back.
He knows the pain of Legos, so I feel like he can handle micro machines, even though I feel like micro machines suck way more. Christmas ornaments, I'm going to go with Kerry Awful because I watched him and Brett Eisen use Christmas ornaments in a match. And again, since Kerry is my close personal buddy, I'm going to let him take some Christmas ornaments. I'm going to spike pile driver him on some Christmas ornaments.
All right, so you took them out. You're scrambling up the stairs. Got a couple of paint cans coming your way.
Ooh, I mean, I got a little bit of shine in, so I got to take some more heat. Let's see, who's bombing me with paint cans? I feel like Joey Janela could be a real bastard and would drop paint cans on me, so we'll go with Joey Janela throwing paint cans at me and screaming he's a bad, bad boy. I can literally just picture him dropping paint cans and screaming, "I'm a bad, bad boy" after each one. So we'll go with Joey Janela and paint cans.
All right, and then so now last enemy you got to deal with here is that damn tarantula.
Oh man, tarantula. I hate to do it to him, but I got to go with my buddy Jeff Cannonball. He's a vegan, and funny story. There were rumors of he was a part of Carnage Cup. There were rumors of there being a tarantula in his match, and he said he would absolutely not do it. So now Jeff Cannonball gets to work with a tarantula because this is Home Alone Wrestling Federation, and anything goes. So yeah, Jeff Cannonball and the tarantula. I picked a lot of deathmatch guys, and I didn't even mean to do that, but yeah. I guess Home Alone's kind of like a kid's deathmatch.
Yeah. And then, so we'll wrap.
My girlfriend said I should make AJ Gray take the tarantula, so I think I'm going to go with that one.
All right.
And then we'll wrap it up here. Who's going to come save the day for you and be Old Man Marley?
Ooh, who's going to be my Old Man Marley? Terry Funk.
All right.
Terry Funk's going to be my Old Man Marley.
Saving the day.
It's just going to be a barbed wire bat.
If Terry Funk's not available, I'll definitely go with Tracy Smothers, too.
All right. Okay.
If Terry Funk's booked, I'll take Tracy, so either one.
Home Alone deathmatch. There you go.
It's funny that you say that because I used to work with a guy in another kitchen I worked in. And he was a pretty casual wrestling fan. Like, he grew up watching it in, like, the 80s, 90s, whatever, watched through the Attitude Era. And he knew that I was wrestling at the time. And he just looked at me one day. He goes, "Why hasn't anybody ever done a Home Alone a Home Alone match?" He didn't know anything about deathmatch wrestling. He goes, "Why hasn't anybody ever done a Home Alone match?" And I go, "How dare you mash up two of my favorite things in the world and now just force me to think about this all day?" I was so ecstatic. I was just thinking of all the dumb things that somebody could do, and I'm now pretty bummed that we're not having a show in December so we can do that.
Well, there's always the future.
So somebody take advantage of that, please.
No, keep that for yourself, man.
Yeah, you got 4 months to put this together.
Man, as long as I get to see it happen, I'm not even greedy like that. If somebody just
all right,
sends me the brother YouTube link and is like, "Hey, I did this Home Alone deathmatch, enjoy," I'm grateful.
We need to get Twitter behind it, because if you get Twitter behind anything, it will happen.
Oh,
guys, send us your home videos of your own Home Alone deathmatch.
No. We here at the Gimmick Table do not support.
For is all of my friends on Twitter are super supportive of my terrible ideas. So if I were to post that, I'm sure at least 3 people would chime in with equally awful ideas. So basically, how my whole deathmatch happened was, we traveled down to Chattanooga for the Scenic City Invitational last year, and we interviewed Tank, and Tank became a really good friend. He's just a wealth of knowledge. If you guys are ever just looking for somebody to talk to, Tank he's a phenomenal interview. He's such a great guy. I call him Dad. And we were just sitting there in the hotel room talking after the interview was done. And I was like, yeah, before I can finally say I'm done with wrestling, I have to have a death match. And he just looked at me and he was like, I'm your guy. So this is something I thought about for 9 months before we were even really running shows. And then the opportunity came up to actually do it, and I put it out there on Twitter, and all of my friends that knew Tank and support me, they just lost their shit. And those of them that watched it, they loved it. They knew it was everything that I wanted to be, which is pretty much just me being decimated by Tank, because he's a large man, and the match was exactly what it needed to be. Was him basically destroying me getting the slightest amount of offense in, and then him just utterly destroying me again. So I'm just grateful for all of my friends. It sounds kind of goofy, but I am really thankful for all of my friends on Twitter that, will either listen to this or watch the shows that we do, or even just listen to the zany ideas that I have that will most definitely shave years off of my life.
I mean, you've heard of the term a glutton for punishment before, right?
Oh, that's 100% me. I don't know what it is. One of my favorite deathmatch wrestlers of all time is Nick Mondo, and I recently watched his movie The Trade, where he talks about by the way, it's a fantastic movie. If you have Amazon Prime, I 1000% recommend it. But he talks about I think he's about to wrestle Wife Beater, and they talk about why they do deathmatch wrestling. I'm not going to give it away, but his explanation and his response are just mind blowing, and it really made me think about why do I do the things that I do? And I don't really have an answer yet. I just know that I'm good at getting beat up, and I'm good at my brain doesn't register pain in the moment. So when I'm doing a death match or getting thrown off a stage or getting stabbed in the head with forks, it's something that I know isn't going to hurt forever. So I just do it. Like, the scars and, like, the pain afterwards or whatever. It's just, like, if it gets the point across and it, like, adds something to the show, then I'll do it. But I don't know, like, that documentary just, like, really sat with me and, like, made me think about things. And Nick Mondo is just, like, Nick Mondo is one of the wrestlers that I saw in the early 2000s that really just, like, kind of changed the way that I saw wrestling. So that's when I really fell in love with deathmatch wrestling and just, like, doing horrible stuff to myself. Strange world.
Hey, to each their own, though, right? But some of your wild and crazy ideas and your friends who support you, those wild and crazy ideas are going to turn into something successful. You know, hopefully they're not all you just going through, you know, death matches. But, you know, obviously probably coming up with, you know, doing Southern Underground Pro, you probably, you know, pitched that out to a few people and they supported you, and that kind of gave you the push to pursue the idea in the first place.
Oh, yeah. Like, just, you know, telling, you know, kind of planting the seed and, like, telling people, you know, what we were doing and the plans, and then being super excited, even if they didn't live close, just saying that they would do whatever they could to support, you know, where they were. It meant the world, and it definitely added, like, a little push just to, you know, make sure that we did better than we ever thought we could. So, you know, I'm very grateful for the people that take the time to support us or even just check in or, you know, repost something even if they don't watch the show. Like, all that stuff means the world to us.
Yeah, it's very important. And, you know, definitely keep us in the loop. You know, as stuff's coming out, let us know. We'll retweet stuff for you. We'll promote the show on the air. We always do little plugs on the intro. So definitely let us know. That's something we would love to do for you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for everything. Thank you guys for having me and, you know, being so kind and letting me take up a huge chunk of your night.
Hey, no problem. We're off for the next. I don't have to work till Monday.
I was off I took today off. Gave myself a 5-day weekend.
Man, I got to work tomorrow. Then I'm off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'll be in North Carolina for WrestleCade. So
nice,
sweet.
Down in the future, if you ever want to come back on the show, I'll set something up and you guys reopen back up so we can help promote the show.
Oh yeah,
man, I'd love it. Yeah, just thank you guys again for everything. It's been a blast.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up for us here today at the Gimmick Table. Thank you once again to Jesse from Southern Underground Pro for joining us today and making this one of our funnest interviews to date. We had a wonderful time. Bats, what did you think? I know the music talk for the first 45 minutes wasn't your cup of tea, but it all came full circle at the end.
Yeah. He's a Garth Brooks fan, so that's cool.
That's what you took away from that 2-hour conversation?
Yep.
Was the fact that he was a Garth Brooks fan?
Yep.
From that whole part about music?
Yep.
Go listen to some Dave Matthews. All right, guys, and if you like the show or you're a Dave Matthews fan, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or YouTube. Especially that iTunes, folks. That really gets our reach out there, gets our guests in more people's ears. So by subscribing there, giving us a rating and a review, you're helping them out as well. We know they would appreciate it. You can check out our website and listen to all our episodes there as well at gimmicktablepod.com. We have links to our merchandise as well as ways that you can join our Patreon and interact with us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at gimmick_table. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. All you have to do is search Gimmick Table Wrestling Podcast. And we want to tell you about our friends as well. We always mention them. They are a great group of guys. Really, they are. We support one another. We give each other ideas. We bounce feedback off one another.
Speech coaching.
Speech coaching for Bats. He has stopped drinking because of Rob's heinous accusations of him always being drunk on the show, which is not true. I
actually had a beer during this episode.
And he sounds perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine. All right, so our friends out there, we got the Wrestling Nerds Alliance. They can be found on Twitter at WNA Podcast. Also look for them on Facebook at Wrestling Nerds Alliance, and you can listen to their extremely funny show. As much as me and Rob banter back and forth, Rob is one funny individual. He's clever, and that's all I'm going to say about that. And Cliff's cool, too. But going on record.
What is this change you got going on here?
Because me and Rob, I like Rob.
Now you and Rob are best friends.
No, we're not best friends, okay?
All right.
Why don't you tell them about our other friends out there?
Well, we got Wretched Wrestling,
oh, God,
and you can find them on Twitter at Wretched Wrestle. They're also on Facebook. We search Wretched Wrestling, but catch their show on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, Podbean, and of course Periscope.
And let's not forget S Marks the Spot. They are on Twitter and Facebook. Twitter, you can find them at S Mark Spot. Just search S Marks the Spot for Facebook. And their show is on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. You can also listen to it on Podbean, and you can watch them on Periscope because they just happen to be the kings of Periscope. Sorry, Wretched Wrestling.
So that brings us to Risebor. And you can find them on Twitter and Facebook at Risebor. And catch them on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Podium.
Now, for our last one is obviously the broadcast. We received a video message from the fellas at the broadcast, and they basically gave us the proper way, as they say, to do a proper Australian accent. So we're going to go ahead and play that for you now.
If you're going to do the Aussie accent, you got to do it like this, mate. You got to do it, you know, just treat your face out, put your lips together, just talk like this, mate. And that's how you do the Aussie accent.
Alright, so apparently that's the proper way to do an Australian accent. I gotta honestly...
Crikey, I think my Australian accent is spot on. And I'm completely gutted that he would say something like that about me.
Completely gutted, you're right, because, you know, honestly, I think our accents are better than theirs. I think they're fake Australians and we're the real Australians.
We have true Australian accents.
So we're actually taking...
Coming straight out of the outback.
We are the Broadcast Podcast, right from Australia. You can find us on Twitter at The Broadcast, and that's with a K because there is no C in the Australian
We've made it official.
It is clearly known, and that is clearly with a K, that there is no C in the Australian alphabet. Make sure you also look for us on Facebook. You can find us at The Broadcast, and you can download our show on iTunes. We are the true Broadcast, not those fakes that call themselves The Broadcast who do fake Australian accents.
And check out Zumbo's Just Desserts on Netflix.
Crikey! Have a good day, folks. Alright, and that wraps it up for us here at the Gimmick Table. Thank you once again to everybody for listening. We hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving this past week, and we hope everybody out there stays safe over the rest of the holidays. Until next time,
See ya.